So how do we get more awe and wonder in our lives? This is where we need to be very intentional about our routines. We need to eliminate hurry from our life. We need solitude. We need to fill our heart and mind with wisdom. We need people in our lives, the people that we want to become like, that have a powerful, positive energy and go out into nature and connect with nature. These sort of things are so important.
I'm going to start with this passage in the book, which has gotten a lot of attention. And it talks about you're on a ferry ride near Seattle, and you see a beautiful house on the ocean. And you write, quote, "Would I rather have a $10 million house on the ocean and have the normal stresses and anxieties of a person with that life? Or would I rather live in an apartment, paycheck to paycheck, but be guaranteed to live with deep contentment, joy, and confidence, independent of circumstances, the rest of my life?" When asked, most people told me they want both the house and peace. I would be in that boat too. But if you had to pick one or the other, which would you choose? End quote. I'll pause there.
Yeah, so you're right. The Rich Roll podcast. I think a lot of the people that are online didn't quite understand that it's a thought experiment because there was some controversy. Why can't you have both and things like that? And so it's just a way to think deeply about your life and what you truly want. Because the reason it's relevant is that I'm a performance coach. I teach professional Olympic athletes and everybody, but that's the majority of my clients over the last 10, 20 years have been professional and Olympic athletes. I teach them how to have peace and confidence when they perform and perform better. And essentially what happens is that they come to me looking for a transaction. They want to achieve something. So it's like coming to me for happiness. Happiness I define as a positive temporary feeling based on what's happening. Get your circumstances just right, you're going to get good feelings. Bad circumstances, feelings aren't good. Whereas I teach them how to have joy, which is a deep sense of well-being, freedom and gratitude, this inner buoyancy and delight that comes from love. And so it's a much deeper pursuit. And this question says, because I obsessed about this sort of thing when I was most of my life, that's why I've thought about it, because I've always wanted to be a superstar. I wanted to be the guy that every guy wants to be and the guy that every girl wants to be with. And so that's what I dreamed about. I'm going to make millions of dollars. Every girl's going to want to be with me. Every guy's going to want to be me. And that's going to be my life. And then God had different plans. But what I do and what I help people do is think deeply. Why do you want that goal that you come to me? Because if you can clarify what you really want and we can go directly for it, one, that'll give you the best chance of getting it. And two, if you don't get it, your life's going to be infinitely better anyway.
Building off of that, something you also say in the book is most of us have been playing the wrong game our entire lives, some of us. What are some of the questions we should be asking ourselves in terms of maybe playing the wrong game or the right game, or is this the right goal, the right pursuit?
Well, I think looking back at the end of your life, what is it that you really wanted? A lot of times parents will, they think, I'm working night and day to provide a great life for my kids, which is an amazing thing. But I think what happens to a lot of parents is they confuse with getting their kids really good circumstances, like really good circumstances, as if having an easier, more comfortable life was the best thing for a kid. And we know if you look at Hollywood that's not exactly always the case. And so I just help people think deeply about what they want most, and we go straight for it.
So in terms of what people want most, you mentioned the outcome. You work with a lot of professional athletes. There's a pursuit, and it's this idea of we have to love the journey. And how do you think about the journey versus the outcome when there's a real measure? Perhaps it's a win, a medal. Maybe it's a revenue number. How do you think about that? Where like the outcome is very important for this person. Is it just about like why is it important, or are there some people, or is it okay? Like I just like winning.
Oh, it's all okay. I never tell people what they should do. I just help them clarify what they want, and I help them get it. And the more important it is that you achieve this thing in your mind, the more important it is to figure out what kind of person do I need to be so I can show up every day or as often as I can, fully engage in the moment, heart, mind, and body, unattached to what I'm trying to do. So I can have the freedom to be the best I can possibly be. What does that look like? And that's what we develop every day with Inner Excellence. How you want to feel, is what we start off with. I want to know exactly how do you want to feel when you're at your best? What's that like? And then we're going to design habits of thought and action to help you get that feeling more often and help you understand what adds to it, what takes away from it. How does your mind work? What does your heart deeply want? How does your subconscious work? How does fear work? And learning these things and learning about yourself really helps you get past all of the superficial, I just want to win. Because you don't even know if winning is good for you. I mean, I've obsessed about winning my whole life, but is what you want right now the best thing for you? We don't know.
Well, you talk about letting go of the 8 attachments, this idea of gaining maximum freedom. I'm assuming that's part of the process. Once you're able to let go of these attachments, there's more clarity as to, is this the right pursuit? Is this what's the why? And I'll run through. It's how others see you, money and possessions, goals, your past, status quo, expectations, self. I think that's all. Did I miss one? Or
That's pretty good.
getting to the why, letting go of our attachments. Walk us through that process for someone who's listening and says, I've got goals, I've got aspirations. I like the journey, I like what I do, but maybe I am a little too attached to the outcome.
Inner excellence is about feeling fully alive. And what you bring to the world, to your kids, the most important thing you bring is not good circumstances, not more money so you can get a nicer house or better circumstances. The most important thing you bring is your heart, yourself. And that's the most important thing about anybody, because that's what your heart is the control center of your life, your spirit, your will. And so developing that is the most important thing that you could ever do. And so that's what we want to develop and understand, that for most of us, the greatest obstacle to developing yourself is the part of your mind that I call the ego, that's always threatened, always comparing, never satisfied. And so when I think of inner excellence, I think of self-mastery. And when I think of self-mastery, I think of mastering the ego. And when I think of mastering the ego, I think about being unembarrassable and unoffendable and unirritatable, things like that, to kind of measure.
What are some of the things we can do on a daily basis to help get there?
Inner excellence is largely about getting into a flow of resonance where you're developing non-judgmental awareness every single day. And if you want to do something great with your life, we just can't afford to let strangers hijack your heart and your mind. And so we've got to eliminate judgment, judging other. When I say judgment, I mean laying down a negative verdict about yourself or others or circumstances. That's one of the greatest obstacles to the best possible life, a wealthy life, WELL. So mastering the ego, that's one of the biggest parts of inner excellence.
And it's also, I think, probably the most difficult one in the age we live in with social media.
Yeah, I think social media is such a big challenge because our deepest need is for love. It's the greatest need of the human heart, is for love and acceptance. And with social media, one of the things that it does is it provides a huge amount of people that can evaluate you and judge you and reject you. And this is the greatest fear in general of humans, is to be rejected. And you can look at, even in prison, what's the greatest punishment? It's to be isolated from others. And so we're created for relationship, and there's a deep need for acceptance. And so there's a real lack of freedom today, especially in teenagers and Gen Zers, because the constant evaluation from social media and the fear of failure, fear of looking foolish. But the truth is, if you can master your ego and say, look, when I go about my day today, there's so many unknowns and I may get judged, but what I want to do is, do I want to live my life constantly anxious about what people think about me? Because you don't have to live that way. And you can work on it every day. And one way that you work on it is ask yourself some questions. Am I willing to face my fears, like of being judged? Am I willing to look foolish? Am I willing to be embarrassed? Am I willing to, this is a big one, am I willing to face any feeling and sit with that feeling if it never goes away? Because if you're willing to face any feeling, now you've got freedom and power.
And how do you think about environment here in terms of people, settings, places, things, and the role they play in this process?
So inner excellence has 9 disciplines. And one of those disciplines is to fuel your heart, your spirit, your will. And so we're fueling our heart every day by everything that we read, watch, listen to, everything that comes across our eyes. But as humans, we're led around by our eyes. We see a beautiful sunset, we're in awe. We see something that's really scary or ugly, we feel bad. And so lining up your environment with the person that you want to become and how you want to feel is crucial. The house that I had previously and sold, little retreat center, all the windows was on the bottom floor, completely covered with prayers, principles, inner excellence ideas, just what I wanted in my mind. And essentially, I may need it more than other people.
It sounds like this is also part of a routine, and you talk about, and this is just not specific to you, but I think if you start to look at professional athletes who you work with, routines prove to be very powerful in terms of developing some level of control over things you can control and letting go of attachment to outcomes and things you can't control. So can we spend a little time on routines and the role they play?
Yeah, yeah. So Jason, what I want for you and for all the listeners is when you come to a stoplight, or say you're traveling and you're in the hotel hallway and you see a painting or a picture, that you stop and you have this solitary moment to yourself. I want you to see beauty. I want you to have a sense of awe and wonder. So how do we get more awe and wonder in our lives? This is where we need to be very intentional about our routines. We need to eliminate hurry from our life. We need solitude. We need to fill our heart and mind with wisdom. We need people in our lives that are the people that we want to become like, that have a powerful, positive energy. We need to connect to the greatest energy in the universe, to God, and go out into nature and connect with nature. These sort of things are so important.
You mentioned connected to God and nature. Talk about spirituality. I think that's a core theme of the book. You have a great line which I loved. You say, "An accurate view of life is that anything good essentially that's happened to you is 90% given to you." Talk about humility.
Yeah, I define humility as an accurate view of self, not overinflated or underinflated. And in the book my book that came out in November, it's getting re-released in March, Best Possible Life. I talk about Michael Phelps, 23 Olympic gold medals, so more than most countries have won in their history. Maybe the best sporting achievement in athletic history. If you were to divide that credit into percentage between Michael and God or the universe, who gets what? Is it 50-50? Half God, half Michael? And in the book, I lay out why I believe it's 98% God and 2% Michael. He gets 2% because he had free will and he could sit on the couch, just like we all do. Why this is and obviously there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a thought experiment. But why I think it's powerful is if Michael achieved that and he can only take 2% credit, what credit can I take? And it reminds me of the idea of self-love. So I don't use that word, but it's a very common word. You got to love yourself. And I kind of talk mostly about what sounds like the opposite, to be selfless and therefore fearless. And so I think the way you love yourself the most is you surrender your little power and your will to the power of the universe, the power that grows the grass and spins the earth and holds the stars in place. That's where the power is. And we got to get out of the way to access that power.
And so you mentioned Michael Phelps, and I think about this idea of letting go, this idea of spirituality, prayer, and I can't help but think of all the great athletes. We've heard in the post game interview, praise God or thank God, and in some ways, it feels like some of them have just figured it out in terms of all the work required and that delicate balance of putting in the effort, working your ass throughout the journey, and then also letting go and letting something bigger take over. What's your take on professional athletes specifically here, and th- that art and science of putting in the work, enjoying the journey at the same time, letting go?
The best possible life, whether you're a pro athlete, Olympic athlete, or stay-at-home mom or dad, is a spirit-led one. If you're trying to control what you want but can't, you're never going to reach the possibilities that are available to you. This is how I spent most of my life. If you want to be great at anything, you have to let go of your grasp, which is so short and so little that you can grasp, and allow yourself to surrender to that power that's far greater than you. Because I can't see what you can see. You can't see what I can see. The way I see the world is through the lens of my childhood, my beliefs, the story that I've created in my mind about what's possible, what's not possible. And so every day I want to get beyond that story, get beyond my self-referential lens, see a little more of what you've seen, and hopefully see more of what God sees, see more of overall reality. Then I can see more beauty and then more possibilities.
In terms of inner excellence, it, from your purview, which athletes do you think really have nailed it, if you will?
Well, I think of first thing that comes to mind was Rafael Nadal saying that he loves to play something like as much or more than he to practice as much or more than he does to play in tournaments. And I think Michael Jordan said something similar. And that's where the power is inner excellence. Our goal every day is I want to get better. I want to learn and grow. The greatest goal is not to get better at your sport, but to get better as a person, develop more inner strength, inner peace, mental toughness, to develop a heart that is whole and not reactionary to strangers, but one that when it gets squeezed, what comes out is inner peace and love, not stress and f bombs.
Well, I love you. You also have these four process goals: give my best effort, be present, be grateful, focus on my routines, and only what I can control.
The first one is, I think, so important to give the best. So I was talking to a football coach who'd won 4 national championships, Frosty Westering, and he shared with me this idea that I love. And he said, there's 3 types of best. There's being the best, whether it's national champion or world champion. Very rare, if ever, will you be the best. And then there's being your best. It's more common, but still not common, not often. How often are you gonna have a personal best day? That's pretty rare. The third best is your best shot. How often can you give it your best shot? Every single day, right? And that's what we focus on is with number one, that first goal. It's understanding that every day you come to the park or the field or the course, the arena, or your office, and you're going to feel somewhere between amazing and terrible. And some days you're not going to be good. You're going to have 20, 30, 40% of your best. And this is important to understand. And if you're trying to get 100% or a personal best day and you don't think about it, so if you don't think about it, then you're going to be trying to get more than what you have. It's going to be a frustrating day. It's going to be much worse than it needs to be. But if you realize, okay, I'm in a 30, 40% day or season, week or season, I'm going to give the best of what I have today, then you can get the most out of that day. It's the expectations and the emotional attachment and judgment that hurts us.
So you mentioned the coach, and I think about coaches a lot with regards to this, getting the best out of players and what that looks like. What do you think the best coaches have in common?
Well, it's interesting you say that, Jason, because when I look at the coaches that had the biggest impact on me for inner excellence in the 5 years of writing and researching that book, they're mostly basketball. So there's Dean Smith at North Carolina, and there's John Wooden, UCLA, and then there's Jordan's coach, 11 rings, Phil. And they're really all about, it's not about winning. They don't talk about winning. And this is, I don't know how much Phil talked about winning, but it's always, I know for sure that Dean Smith and even Coach K at Duke, it was about, and especially John Wooden, developing yourself and see how good you can be. It's like Frosty Westering had this great quote that I love at a national championship. One of his players said, they're here to beat us. We're here to be us. And when you focus on winning and beating someone, there's just way too much out of your control. It's too stressful and scary for most people. It's just like anger. For some people, anger really helps someone perform better. For most people, anger is just attachment to the past that takes you out of the present. And so to be your best is figuring out what do I need to do to get myself where I'm fully engaged in the moment, heart, mind, and body, unattached to what I'm trying to do every day.
Well, Wooden, if I recall correctly, had this philosophy where he didn't really scout other teams. His thought process was if we prepare and execute and be our best, that's all we have to worry about. It's this idea of run your own race. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, it's similar to I asked the Hall of Fame golfer, what's the difference between you and everybody else? And he said, I don't really know what other people do. And I thought that was very telling because I think It's especially with social media, it's so easy to get pulled in way too many directions. And oh, should I try that? Oh, they're doing this. I might try that too. And it's really what do I need for me to be my best? And so that's what I try to do and help others do.
Well, on that note, you had a great term I loved from the book, affluenza. How do you suggest we think about affluenza when it's all around us and we're in danger of being infected with it?
Yeah. So I think of this term, affluenza, this virus of the heart. I have this acronym called PALMS that human nature is, and especially in Western culture, we get obsessed about possessions and achievements, looks, money, and status. And it's because of our deep need for love. And we feel that we have this part of our mind that's always threatened, always comparing, never satisfied, the ego. And it tricks us. And it says, hey, if you get more of those things, more possessions, achievements, looks, etc., then you're going to get the love you want. But the problem with that is, what if you don't get it? What if you fail? Now you're going to get the opposite of what you want, which is rejection, your greatest fear. And so that keeps so many people in anxiety.
Jason Walkup here, founder and co-CEO of mindbodygreen and the host of the mindbodygreen podcast. Please subscribe. You'll never miss a show and you won't regret it. So I'm going to talk about your own experience here. You famously wrote Inner Excellence years ago. Book came out, sold some copies. And then boom, years later, January 2025, A.J. Brown, the Philadelphia Eagles, is caught reading the book on the sidelines of a nationally televised playoff game. And then overnight, you start selling hundreds of thousands of copies, runaway bestseller. The rest is history. And years had passed. Talk about you and your process and what have you adjusted or not adjusted? What was the gym in December 2024 versus the gym in January 25 and beyond? What's changed?
Well, one, I don't think that I could have handled it maybe even a year ago. God's timing was perfect. All of the low times in my life, I almost had a mental breakdown after I came out of the desert and spent 5 years of full-time writing and researching inner excellence. I was $90,000 in debt, spent my life savings. I was obsessing about this project, wanted to write the best book ever on mental toughness. And
it's pretty darn good, I got to say. I know you're not, it's pretty darn good.
Thank you, Jason. So that experience of having that near mental breakdown and many others that were really low, like we've all had, now I can see God was training me and preparing me for this season. But yeah, it's one of the things. So I'll tell you about Super Bowl week. So as many of the listeners and viewers know, the playoff game against the Packers, he's shown on national TV reading the book, and then they win every game. He's shown on the sidelines reading the book during the game, every game. They win the Super Bowl, same thing happens. And so I'm at the Super Bowl. Well, I'm in New Orleans rather for 9 days. I get there the Sunday before, just doing interviews, and I really wanted to go to the game, but I kind of decided, and I'm always I want to be in touch with God. I want to live a spirit-led life where I'm not stressing about, I'm not responsible for my results, just my heart and my actions. I'm just like, I know that I'm not super good at running my life. So I want the creator of the universe to do it. So I was like having this conversation with God. I was like, okay, I'd really love to go to that game, but it's really just because I'm a football fan. I played college football and also have a vested interest in who wins. And I know some of the players, but I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars on a ticket. So I decided that if you think it's a good thing for me to go, either someone gives me a ticket or I'll get one for face value. Otherwise, I won't go. So I didn't get a ticket. So I'm in my $800 or $900 a night Holiday Inn Express, 20 minutes outside of New Orleans, and in my room by myself watching this game. And then once I started watching the game, then I realized why I feel God wanted me to watch it by myself, because he had a few things to tell me, which I never would have heard had I been at the Super Bowl. And one of those things, well, he was saying, your routines are going to be very important. But the thing that was, I think, one of the biggest things was this idea that I felt God told me years ago. I started to work with pro athletes in 2011. Henrik Stenson and Hunter Mahan were two of my first pro PGA Tour golfers, and that kind of kicked off this long period of working with mostly pro golfers. And I started to realize, as I start to hang out with them more often, I kind of liked that life. We go to nice restaurants and beautiful places. And I was like, if I keep doing this and I just get absorbed into this life, I'm going to need more coaching than them. What I bring is I help them be fully present in the moment, unattached to what they're pursuing, help them pursue something more powerful and deeper and developing themselves. But if I get caught up in that life, now I'm going to be no good. And so I thought, how am I not going to get attached to these things, these comforts? So I set a goal. I said, okay, my goal is to spend 50% of my time with both ends of society as far as affluence. Pro athlete, that's this high status, makes a lot of money. For every hour I spend with them, my goal would be to spend an hour with a homeless person. And that's what God told me at the Super Bowl. He said, you're going to be, that idea is going to be important for you going forward. You're going to want to spend more time with people that really are lacking resources and really need help. And so that's been, since the whole thing went down on January 12th, and my life has been this whirlwind of hundreds of interviews and constant travel. Is the most exciting thing is what we're going to do in inner city Philly.
And let's talk about that. What are you going to do there?
Well, Shane Claiborne has been a hero of mine for years. He moved in there 20, 30 years ago. He wrote a book that really had a huge impact on my life called The Irresistible Revolution. And what he's done, the reason he's a hero is that he lives in a way that I think if God were living or Jesus was alive today, that how Jesus would live. Essentially, he's devoted his life to serving the poor. So he lives in inner city Philly, and I was meeting with a real estate agent about getting an Inner Excellence Academy set up there in inner city Philly. But I was meeting with Shane and other people. Well, what would help the most? How can I teach inner excellence and provide tangible resources that will help the community the most? And then I thought about, was reminded about Bill Strickland. He wrote a book called Make the Impossible Possible. And I read it about 15 years ago. And now there's 17 centers around the world that they teach job training skills through this really cool process where they help people feel alive through the arts, and specifically starting with pottery. So I contacted their team, and I actually spent a couple of days with their CEO and looked at 3 different centers. And so we're now talking about bringing a center like one of Strickland's centers to inner city Philly.
That's incredible. It feels like if someone's listening, a real takeaway for me is service. You've got to integrate service into your life. If you're on the journey, maybe you're a little lost, maybe you're, for lack of a better word, not as happy as you want to be. Whatever you're pursuing, integrate a little service. What are you doing to help others?
Well, yeah, joy. I think joy is the greatest feeling, and joy comes from love. And when I say love, I mean sacrificing for others, and especially if you do it in secret.
In secret.
Yeah, it's easy, especially in today's day and age. It's easy to, if I do something nice for somebody and I let other people know, well, that's going to be your reward. And that is rewarding. You do something nice and you let other people know, and then they say, "Oh, you're great. That must have felt great." And there you go. But when you do it in secret, now you free yourself from what other people are thinking about you, because you have a greater sense of self-worth and value when you love others and don't share it.
How do you think about success today? What does that look like for you now?
For me personally, or in general?
Yeah, both.
There's such a great need in the world today. There's so much violence and starvation. Just the need is so huge. And so I think of the kind of this dual success is one, to have a heart that when it's squeezed, that love comes out, that inner peace comes out, that something good comes out when you're under pressure. And so to develop my character, to have a heart that's more and more loving and willing to sacrifice for others. And then the other success is sharing God's love with the world. How can we share that with more people? Tangibly, of course, with whether it's food, clothing, shelter, anything like that, but also especially the great need for love and compassion. Compassion is literally means to suffer with. That's the root of the word. Calm is with, and passion means suffer. And so it's much more than empathy. Compassion is really to walk alongside somebody, and that's where the power is. That's where joy comes from.
And how do you think, I'm a parent, I've got 2 young girls. I'm sure a lot of parents listening are saying, I love everything he's saying. How do I work on my kids? How do you think about children? How do we incorporate these lessons?
Yeah, well, the first thing is adopting a kid in Mexico or Africa or whatever, $40 a month. That's the easiest low-hanging fruit right away for a parent. And then to go visit them sometime and spending time with the poor. What happens is human nature is like Jim Murphy. I always want to be comfortable. If you said, okay, two choices, poked in the eyes in the hot tub, which one you want, Jim? It's always hot tub. Never would say, I'll take the eye poke, because that's human nature. We want to be comfortable. And so you need to battle against that if you want to live a great life, because the best possible life has one foot in joy and one foot in suffering. And if you're not intentional about it, you're going to try and build walls to make your life more and more comfortable. And I've noticed this in my life, and especially after January 12th. And what that does is it isolates you. And so if you want to help your kids live the best possible life, it's exposing them to the poor and helping them feel fully alive by connecting them with people that lack resources.
Volunteer, go to a soup kitchen on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, or go to an inner excellence retreat with Youth with a Mission and Homes of Hope.
There you go. If you could go back and give yourself advice just a year ago, what would it be?
Well, the big thing that's come over and over in my mind is that God's been training me. I just never, it's just natural to think when things are really rough, it just sucks. It's like, I don't know why things are so hard and why is this happening and why are they doing this? And there's no reason. And now I look back at all those times and I'm like, wow, that was training. That was training. That was training. That was all preparation. Had I known that, I would have been way less stressed out about it. And I'm writing this book, The Best Possible Life, on the spirit-led life. And I was talking to my spiritual mentor this morning, Nick Osborne, and he shared this example with me that I think is so powerful. He said, God gives you when you're getting trained by God, it's like he gives you a jacket that's 2 sizes too big. And these are like your circumstances. It doesn't fit. And you're like, man, this doesn't fit. This is really uncomfortable. What's going on here? And you want to take it off. You're like, oh, I don't like this. I want one that fits. But that would be like a parent giving a 4-year-old jacket, buying them a jacket that fits exactly that 4-year-old. I mean, they grow out of it in a few months, right? And so you buy a jacket a little bigger so they grow into it. And that's what the spirit-led life, that faith-filled life is like, is God puts you in these places that are really uncomfortable. It's for your good. And so that's what I would remind myself and tell myself, look, it's all training for you.
I mean, it's tremendous perspective. And I think flipping the script in terms of why is this happening to me to what can I learn from this? Where is this going? Very difficult to do when you're in the thick of it, when there is no light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. Always easier to hindsight, but
there's 2 things that I think about, Jason. One is the inner excellence principle. All things are here to teach me and help me. It's all working for my good. And the other one is gratitude. Developing gratitude, because gratitude is directly linked to inner peace and inner strength. And you develop gratitude by looking for the smallest moments in your life every day that you can be grateful for. The smaller, the better. And I'll give you an example of a routine that I've had. If I've parked my car at the mall or the parking garage for hours or whatever, and I've been gone for a while. In America, there's a chance it could get broken into, and like many countries. So before I get to my car, I'll say, thank you, God, for the car you've given me all this time and it's not been smashed. If I come back and the windows are smashed, thank you for all the time you've given it to me that it hasn't been that way. And same thing for my house. When I'm gone, because I travel so much, come back to the house, before I turn the corner to get to the house, say this little prayer, thank you, God, for giving me this house and how you've protected it all these years. If I come back and the windows are all smashed out, the doors are open and everything's gone, or it's burnt to the ground, thank you for giving it to me all these years where it's been safe. And then if I get there, it's burnt to the ground, I'm prepared for it. But human nature is, if I come back and it's burnt to the ground, it's a traumatic experience. How could this happen to me? Whereas the real wisdom is like, why hasn't it happened already? Like, what did I do to deserve not have it happen? Like, there's so many people that have had way worse things to them that were way better people than me.
Well said. Again, I think you have tremendous perspective. In closing, I recommend everyone pick up Inner Excellence. And when is the other book being re-released?
March 31st. You can get it now. You can get this version right now on Amazon.
On Amazon now, and then Inner Excellence.
And then in March, it'll be in bookstores and the new version.
Incredible. I recommend everyone pick up the books. Tremendous reads for anyone looking to, live a better, more joyful, purpose-driven life. Very thought-provoking, to say the least. We covered a lot today. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to cover, Jim, before we wrap?
Well, I think I mentioned it briefly that the world today is a scary place. And I think it's so important to understand that, like, let's look at the news, for example, or be careful about looking at the news. If you want to be informed about current events, if you're watching video of it, then that can really wreak havoc with your heart. Because the news is very negative. And so if you want to, it's much less impact, the negative energy, if you read it versus watching it. But Tim Ferriss has this great chapter in one of his books. I think it's 4 Hour Work Week, about the low information diet, and I really love that idea. And it's really simplify your life and study and learn about things that are very empowering and that you love, and be ignorant about everything else.
Amen to that. Jim, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.